everybody. It's me again, Fani Reinders. Welcome to the show. I've not been streaming for 2 weeks. Took some time off. Should have probably said, right? But nevertheless, I'm back, and we're gonna be taking a look at some awesome projects out there today, and see where we can hopefully contribute. Because specifically for the .NET guys and Xamarin guys out there, a couple of days ago, maybe it's like 10 days ago or something, there was a thing called what was it, Blazor native bindings or Blazor mobile bindings or something like that being released. Now that is a game changer for all the native applications like Xamarin development and also Windows Forms development out there. We'll be checking out that a bit, maybe playing around with that, but mainly I was thinking of last week I was chatting to Jeff Fritz, another live coder on stream, about potentially creating a migration for a Blazor application. So let me take a step back maybe. He's doing a few components. If you are a web forms developer, by replacing your web forms stuff with Blazor and keeping the syntax probably about 95% the same. So the idea is to create a little tool that you can run once off, and it will go and convert it from web form style to Blazor style, but still keeping your business application intact. So that's another thing that we can also maybe talk about today. For all the folks that has just joined us, welcome to the show. My name is Fani Reinders. I am a live streamer or live coder, a part of the Live Coders team. I've kind of updated my branding a bit this morning to sort of be more in line of what we're trying to do. So we are all friendly people trying to make a difference in the live coding space. There isn't any movement on the chat right now, so let's see if we can maybe share the screen a bit. By the way, if you want to chat to me or like voice your opinion or ask any question you want, .NET related, Azure related, anything actually, just lift up your hand, or just on this side here you can pop your question or your comment, and then we can gladly assist in answering them, and we can have a mutual discussion on things happening on the stream. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Ooh, there we go. So let's actually start off with this. So Blazor is a blog post by Ali. He has blogged about the thing that was launched on the .NET Conf focus sessions that they had last week about Blazor and Xamarin. Just to maybe zoom in a bit, what this means is, for the Blazor folks out there, Blazor is Blazor is a web technology that allows us to create UIs using C# and the Razor syntax, right? But nothing stops us from creating the same syntax and render it in native style. So here we have an example of I think this is an Android application over here. That is a native Android application, but it's driven by these Razor components, which is actually C# behind the scenes. And he blogs basically about what it is and all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking maybe taking a look at this because it's quite interesting. This is like I said, it's completely open source. All right. So if you do not know what it is, I would suggest you go and Google Blazor, and maybe I'll just put it on the chat here quickly. Blazor.net, I think. Is that a thing? Yes. We'll just put that on the chat. So basically, for the folks that do not know what Blazor is, you can have UIs like this defined in HTML. And it can basically create a server-side hosted application or a client-side hosted application that's running on WebAssembly, all driven by .NET and this Razor syntax, which is all just C#, right? C# and HTML-ish. I say HTML-ish because it's all HTML, but it can change in the future. If you take a look at what Xamarin is now trying to do with their native things. So in Xamarin, I'm not a mobile developer myself, but when you kind of create things in Xamarin, like mobile applications, you define it in XAML, right? So you define your UI in XAML, or you can do that in code using XAML forms, or Xamarin Forms, sorry. So that's cool. So XAML is also like a sort of a subset of HTML or XML, just like HTML is. I think that's the proper way of saying that. But in any case, so what Blazor is trying to do is achieving the same thing, but allow web developers to also party on with the native development, not changing their mindset or not changing their way of thinking, or even prevent them from, or not prevent, that's a really, really strong word, maybe not requiring them to know XAML or something like that. So you can bring your own knowledge, like with HTML, and you can still make native applications in .NET, and it will run natively on the application, on the phone itself. So yet again, this is a kind of project that is open source. It's completely experimental, this specific part. So let me take a step back again. So Blazor is production ready. So that's part of .NET Core 3.0 or 3.1. That's supported by Microsoft, the server-side one. I'm not entirely sure about the client-side one. I think the client-side is installed in preview officially. But you can basically say that's supported by Microsoft, right? So because it works, it's been battle tested, etc. These things that I'm doing, that we're going to dig in today, the mobile bindings, is more experimental. Now, experimental, you can take it any way you want. But I have a very strong opinion about this because this is actually the future in my opinion. I might be wrong, but I think for web developers, this is a thing to watch out for. This will definitely be a thing that will be moving towards production ready. So this is the project that you want to be checking out. It's on the Xamarin / mobile Blazor binding. So what we're going to do, just to quickly show you what the just to quickly show you what the power of this is. Actually, make it sandbox. Let's go and zoom in a bit, folks that can see. Actually, I want to use my terminal. So let's go back to sandbox. What's wrong with my? There we go. Box, and I think it's git clone, and I'm just gonna maybe change the song a bit because this isn't chill music. There we go. I think that's much better, I would say. Okay, so according to me, the native bindings has been installed. Let's go up and open that up because I'm very excited to showing you this, guys. Alright, so some of these things are not supported. I don't have the whole I don't have the Xamarin extensions or the mobile tooling installed, but it's fine. I wonder why Visual Studio don't warn me about it, allowing me to install that ad hoc, but we can most probably install that on stream to see how it goes. So basically, yes. I want to see what happens here because, okay. So what I want to show you is there's a sample Blazor Informs, so BL Informs. I don't know if you can see there. Give me a bit there, guys. The BL Informs. That's the example that we're going to be doing now. In here, what we have is it's a normal WinForms application or console application rather. So it's got a program file, a program class, and it's got a main. right? And when it starts up, you create your default host. It adds the Blazor Informs extension, which I'm actually interested to see what happens here. So it will add a hosted service. That's very interesting, but we won't go into that detail now. And it will add the application status as singleton, and this startup thing that it's doing. So it's doing a lot of bunch of startup things here, but the main thing I want to show you guys is the To-Do app that has a Razor application. This does not compile. Let me just see if this compiles. Hopefully this will compile. Okay, so that compiles. So as you can see, all of these things are a what's called Blazor components. So this is a .razor file, and it's all Blazor components, which is C# generated at the back. But you have your notion of a split container with a panel 1 and a panel 2, for instance, and labels and a panel, etc. You know, it's almost like XAML, but it's not XAML. This is Blazor. But the cool thing is you can put C# code in here, like add code, and do your C# code in line. You could also do this as a backed CS file as well. There's an example of this here. But in any case, let's just see if we can find an example. So there's a split container that's built in from the sample I know. Then you see we have this counter. We have this counter component, right? So that's part of the sample itself. So if we go to the counter here, we inject app state beautifully with the add inject function. And then we continue with our syntax. So this can be HTML, but depending on how you want to render this. So this is WinForms specific. But the idea is that you can reuse your counter.razor wherever you go. So the idea is, so this is the counter, and it will render out a panel. This panel will be a Windows Forms specific panel. And this label is a WinForms specific label, which is behind the scenes also just a Blazor component. But what's nice is this imports file. So you have this underscore imports.razor. So that's the single point where you can call in all your namespaces. Instead of explicitly defining your namespaces within your components, you can now say, I want all the components automatically. I want to import this namespace wherever I go within this scope. So this is why this panel and this button and this label can light up here, because it infers it from the imports file. So it's actually part of Blazor Forms framework controls, right? So you don't have to specify it all the time. The cool thing is, this is a WinForms sample. So let's say there is a I don't know, Blazor in mobile. I'm just spitballing, right? You won't have that one, but you will have this one. Changing one file, and if there are implementations of that one within that scope, it will be a panel specific for mobile, it will be a button specific for mobile, and it will be a label specific for mobile, not for WinForms. And you haven't touched the code there. And I think that's the idea moving forward. But yet again, that's my opinion. Okay, so let's see. So if we run this sample now, it breaks. Why would it break now? Interesting. This didn't break last time. Cool. Okay, so the idea is it did render something, but did it work? That's the point. Let's go start a project again, maybe recompile this. See what's happening. So this is a WinExe, so this only will work in .NET Core using the Razor Language 3. So just want to see what happens if I run this now, because this is not supposed to break. string to boolean. So value is false. Why does it wanna? That's weird. Okay, so somewhere there's a little toggle thingy that's supposed to be. Let's see if we can find that. Maybe we can fix that as well. I've got some movement in the chat. Headband Kilian, welcome to the show. He says, well, the person says, I like your video on how to set up voice triggered commands. Thank you so much. Brilliant feedback. If you want to know more, just hit up to my GitHub page and you can get all the source code there and maybe use it in your own stream if you want to. Thank you so much. Well, let me see. I'm missing something. So on click, count visible, true or false. Okay, so what I'm gonna be maybe doing is, why is this? This is weird because this was not the case in the past. The get bool helper. Okay, so if value is yeah, so get bool. So if value is null, return false. Otherwise, cast it as, I think here we would have a boolean dot convert. Right? I think that's much better. Head Bandit Kilian says, I tried a couple of different solutions but found that the commands weren't accurate enough. I feel like we may need to look at using a Google API or voice recognition, but I think it costs. Not true. So what we have is currently we have a Windows only local build that uses the voice synthesis of the operating system itself. That isn't really so accurate. Also, if you're not a native English speaker like me, or you can use the cloud one. Now, in my case, it was specific to Cognitive Services of Azure Cognitive Services that you need to kind of pay for depending on how much you want to use it, right? So there is a free tier that you can stick in your subscriber key, and it will use that. But I've noticed that depending on how much you talk and how much it will need to translate, at some point it's going to be charging you. And I think that's the reality of the things. Yeah, so we could also build in a Google API for that. It might be an idea to start off with one provider. The moment it kind of it fails over to the next provider. So you can start off with Azure, and when that breaks or when you give the exception of, let's say, your free tier is up, it can move over to your backup subscription, which is Google voice recognition APIs. That can also be an idea, but that's something for a different stream, I believe. But I think nevertheless, good feedback there. Boolean, just want to, let's convert. We need to convert that to Boolean. I think this is the case that we need to do, because I think this can work. What is this? Converts. Let's see. Let's see if this works again. String 1 was not recognized as. Maybe I just want to get something out here. So let's just for now just do this, right? So we say if value to string is 1, then the value is true. Just want to do that for now because, you know, time. Hey, Better Killian says, I'll take another look. I've got so many stream projects I'm working on, so I've decided to work on some other stuff for now, but I've got some other ideas for voice activations at some point in the future. That's good. Maybe we can put our heads together, and if you're also a streamer, we can maybe do it on a live stream. That will be great. And we can maybe, I've also got some other ideas for that voice thingy. So maybe we can build a cool extension for that and maybe push it up to the next level. I think they're supposed to be working. Let's just see what happens. Now this is, oh, okay, fine. Let's put another if in here because I have no idea why is that happening, because I have no idea what the code is doing really. I just want to actually show off this demo. There we go. So this is a WinForms application, right? So there was not any designer involved, nothing, and it totally works. So, well, hopefully if I go do that, add items to it, I go done, and it sort of what do you call it, strikes through. I have this counter. All right, so this representation is basically the same as the what's it, Blazor demo or something. Where is that? With that this counter. This is the web-based renderer. So and I assume it's kind of the same component. If I'm not mistaken, we're actually going to see. Or is it? I'm going above myself here, but it could be the same kind of component. So in this case, it uses HTML as a renderer, but the structure is the same, right? So if you have a label, in this case, it's a WinForms one. Yet again, it looks like this. It looks like this. So the implementation is with panels and buttons and labels. The one on the web one is the implementation is with divs and what do you call it, spans, etc. and buttons. So this is the idea. But for me, it was like mind-blowing to see that it can actually work in WinForms, because I'm also building WinForms applications myself. If you follow my previous streams, and this is a good kind of bridge to get to where we want to. So we would always have WinForms problem. WinForms will always be there. It will never go away, because there are legacy applications. There are UWP applications if you're working in a Windows space. Blazor can solve that for you because it can render them. It's then possible to render the same source code, or most of the source code can be the same, and you can render it in UWP or WinUI or whatever you want to do. It can render it in that format. So I was wondering, how does this thing look? So this is the list. So we have a left panel and a right panel or something with a to-do entry, and it just goes over this. And then this to-do entry is a Razor component in itself that has a checkbox and a label. So if it's done, find checked, item is done. And that's how it kind of works, which is quite cool. Hi folks, if you just joined me, I'm checking out the Blazor native bindings, or the Blazor mobile, or the mobile Blazor bindings that's in preview or experimental phase now from Microsoft. That was announced, I think, a couple of weeks ago, two or so, which is quite cool. And they are busy building this kind of framework that allows you to root form that allows you to create Blazor components using your web knowledge, like your Razor knowledge. Ed Bennett Killian, do you have any experience building OBS plugins? Now that depends on what type of plugins, because as far as I know, most of my plugins that I've written is just for the browser control. So specifically no, I don't have any experience with OpenCV. I know of OpenCV, but kind of outside my comfort zone. But feel free to sort of ask a question. Maybe we've got some other viewers on the show that you can help each other, because this is what it's all about, right? Helping each other in code. So this is cool. So I'm going to see how this will work. How can we get this thing working? Xamarin Android incompatible. So I'm going to go and install Visual Studio installer. I'm going to see if I can maybe install the Android components in the background. I need to update my installer. And then maybe we can also see the same thing in effect with mobile. I think the mobile world will be more disrupted with this technology, because yes, we have XAML, and yes, we have, I don't know what iOS is using, Swift and all that kind of things. But it would be cool to have one language for all of it, you know? Because as a .NET developer, you know, doing web, you need to have HTML knowledge. And to do mobile, you need to have XAML knowledge if you're using Xamarin, etc., etc. But now, if you do, for instance, use Blazor, then you can actually just use one type of syntax as a .NET developer still for all your stacks, which is quite cool, quite brilliant, I would say. I'm gonna actually where can I say? Modify. I'm gonna maybe modify my installation a bit. And I want to go to the mobile development with .NET. And how big is it? 4 gigs of data. Okay, that should be fine. Modify, install. That means I cannot use my Visual Studio for now. I think that is kind of a problem. But we can most probably use Visual Studio Code, right? So it shouldn't take long. Downloads it, verifies it. It's 1 gig of stuff. I think this is fine. Another comment in the chat. There is a project I'd like to make that it takes OBS scenes and outputs it to a 3D or to a 3D application or plugin that applies complex and custom 3D effects, similarly to what Blender 3D can do in real time using the real-time rendering engine called Eevee. I'm not just exactly sure on where to start. I've been looking into scripting with Blender and OpenCV, but I had a hard time getting that working. I feel like it will make more sense to make my own application or plugin for it. That is a mouthful. So if anyone that's watching this the show, unfortunately I cannot help with that question. Please, no problem. Please feel free to help Headbandit Kilian. Maybe just drop your Twitter there for the folks that can reach you, your Discord or whatever, so that they can get in touch with you, so that they can maybe help you if someone can help you. But thank you so much for reaching out. We are happy to help. So in the meanwhile, I am updating my Visual Studio. You can imagine 2 weeks not streaming, actually 2 weeks not touching this specific PC. It's been out of date for quite some time. There we go. There is Headbandit Kilian's Discord, so reach out to him if you would like to help him out on that. And that the question is more related to like 3D rendering and OBS plugins and anything else. So if you are an expert, I think you can help him. Okay, so this looks like this is almost done. Is Xamarin free though? I have no idea. Let's just see. Xamarin free. Let's just see. If is it? Yeah, that's completely open source. So it's free, cross-platform, open source. So that's, in the past you would need a license for it, but now it's completely free. I know the guys freak out if they see Xamarin. It's like, oh no, it's not free. No, this is completely free, as far as I know. And you can build your nice mobile applications with that using Xamarin. It's quite cool. So what we can do in the meanwhile while that is doing its thing. So going back to Jeff Fritz. So this is, if you go to Jeff Fritz's GitHub page, he's got this repository going, Blazor web form components. So the gist behind this is still using Blazor, but the idea is to, we have folks that's still using, I'm also guilty myself, that has applications out there using web forms, Microsoft's ASP.NET web forms specifically. That is something that will never, that is something that will, I would say, not really be phased out in a long run, I would say, but eventually. But the problem is there are still enterprises and applications that depend on this technology to function correctly. And I think the leap is too big for people to just go over to .NET Core or rewrites or these things. So if it just works, don't mess with it, right? So that's the main idea. So the idea was to have, and I think he mentions that web forms will be end of life like in 9 years time, right? So it's not around the corner, but it's kind of a deadline that's approaching. So we need to kind of think of a way of kind of still using web forms, but in a more modern fashion, right? So Blazor, well, where we go, Blazor for web, Blazor components for control. So that's all the web forms components for ASP.NET web forms. The idea is he's creating a list of ASP.NET web form controls that is going to be migrating to Blazor, which is interesting, because how would you use that in the future, especially when .NET 5 is coming out? One of the problems we have is with ASP.NET web forms is we have this bee sting notation. So it's this little small as percentage, big as, and that needs to be kind of converted to the @ notation, the @ bracket notation. So there needs to be kind of a way of doing that automatically, and I've suggested that maybe we can put some shim into the Razor parser, that if it sees that in .NET Core, if it sees this in a Razor file, it needs to automatically translate that to the @. But if it's a kind of a thing that's too hard to do, and it's not going to be doable, or it's definitely possible, but for the return you get for that effort, I don't know if that might be a thing that we can be working on. Import files are using, and then you have this ECSX files that needs to be converted to components. There's no more master pages, page directive changes, no namespaces, no tag prefixes. So if you look at a simple example, I think he has got a simple example here. Source. Oh, that's not the thing. We need to go to the samples. So before web forms, let me see if I can find an example here. So this is the bee sting notation I was talking about, right? And the content, so you've got this ASP:, so that's your prefixes. But the idea is that the idea about this project is that you can literally copy and paste your ASPX pages or your components. If I'm not mistaken, let me just see if I can find a suitable view switcher here. And then maybe open up another one. Let me see, after server side, let's just go to the server side one. Pages, control sample. Okay, so he's got a list view control. Let me just see, list view. And it's kind of similar. So if we take a look at the, let me just maybe go to the list view control here, because control samples, list view. We go to default. Yes, that's much better. So on the default page, we have this body, and then within the body, I've got the list view. Oh, that's the Blazor. Let me just go back here. So the original one, you have your body, and then you have ASP::list view. with all these parameters, right? So you've got your ID, your run at server, you enable true, your item type is that, and then you've got your layout template, and you've got your layout template going there, and your alternating item template, etc. The idea about this is not to change your code at all. So the idea is to make minimal changes to this. You have your list view without the ASP, of course. Then you have add ref, which is kind of the same as this item type, I would say, isn't it? Or not? No, that's the model. I'm not sure. This run at is there, but according to me, that's being ignored. Enable view state. That's not in there. Context is item, which is also not in here. And item type is the same as item type here. So the idea is to keep the code the same as much as possible. But, you know, you have your add notation and you have your beasting notation. There will be some changes. And I think the idea about the converter that I was mentioning earlier is to have it like .NET Blazor .NET Blazor migrate or something. You give it a file or files, and it should apply these rules and convert your application. But it's more difficult than it really sounds, because you need to kind of go through all the edge cases to figure out what's the actual problem and how it should convert it. Let's just see. Maybe that's an idea for a stream for later on. I'm just chilling out today, keeping it simple. Okay, so now we have our Visual Studio installed. So I think now we actually have compatible. Come on, here we go. So the Android one, let me see. That was interesting because this Android emulator, I've never done this before. Really? New device. Okay. Great. Left. I'm just like doing things. I don't know what I'm doing. The first time I'm doing this is actually quite scary. So let's see. Busy downloading. Let's see what happens. It's almost there, I would say. Come on. Why is it 2 installing? I need 1, right? So, in any case. Unzipping. It's too late now, I would say. Okay. Unzipping again for some reason. Well, that's doing its thing. What I want to show you guys is that you have a weather example. Let me see. Blazor to do. Main page. So you have your content page, you have your style sheet, your pancake view, your grid, your layouts, and content. So these are specific to mobile, right? So, and you have CSS. That's very interesting. Could you? I don't know. You can use CSS in Xamarin. What must I just start it now? What's the story? Run anyway. So how does this work? Probably need some experts on this. Is this even working now? Let's turn this off. I don't know what I'm doing. Run this again. Nothing's happening. Something is happening. Launching the emulator needs the Windows hypervisor platform installed and enabled. Please form. Oh, really? Okay. Fine. Features. It's the Windows hypervisor platform. How do I install that? Windows control panel. Let's see. Programs. I think this is the Windows stuff. Windows hypervisor platform installed and enabled. So let's see. Hopefully I won't need to restart my computer because that's just not on. Okay, that kind of works. Does this turn off? So let's see what happens. Start. Turn on Windows. Okay, let's just see what happens. Maybe this will work now. No, really? Hypervisor. Oh, that's Docker. For some reason, that's okay. Run this again to see what will it do. Because launching the Android emulator on Hyper-V needs the Windows Hypervisor platform installed and enabled. Please turn on Windows features on or off dialog. Okay, so that's what I've done. That's exactly what I've done. So Windows E. Maybe there's something else I need to do here. Probably need to restart. Really? You have some background, what do you call it? Noise maybe coming through. Cleaning day, I would say. So let's see if this happens again. What's happening? These things are not working. This is what I've done. I've enabled. Okay, so maybe see what happens now. There we go. Old boot. Requested by the user. Dismiss. Hopefully this will run in a second. Cool, there we go. We've got something happening. So there's a pixel. Installing the Monoshade runtime. Of course, Xamarin. Adding all the files. Hey Willem Mates, how are you doing? Thank you so much for dropping by. Nice to see you. I am doing currently some kind of kicking the tires of Xamarin's mobile bindings for Blazor. And I've just shown how it can be possible doing Blazor for WinForms. Now trying it out for Xamarin. My first time ever I'm doing a Xamarin application on stream. Willemijn says, pretty good, figured I'd check out the stream. Good to see you work on Xamarin stuff. Been a while since I last tried that. I'm not working on Xamarin per se, but like I said, I'm getting my hands dirty with Xamarin to show off this Blazor native binding. So it kind of looks quite cool. It kind of works with your toggles. So don't the same components. Well, the same components. You know, like I said, if you're using Blazor, just if you change your namespace, and technically, if we compare that to the, where is that other one? This to-do entry, for instance. It has a panel with a checkbox and a label, right? If we compare that, so let's just pin that, for instance, there. If we pin that to the, yes, it's here. Does it? Where do we? That's a weather example. That's not that one. Component wrapper. Where is that example now? So, looking for the main activity. So how does this work now? Initialize. Add singleton, text-to-speech, Android. This is not the one we are running now, is it? Pancake view. Let's maybe stop it. I'm actually surprised how fast it is. So this is the shared project. Ah, I see. Okay, there's the to-do. So the to-do entry here. So this is the idea. So this is the web one, the web version, or the Windows Forms version, and this one is the mobile version. But you can imagine that you still have a label for mobile, and you have a label for WinForms. This label, if you take a look at the namespace, it's in WinForms, so Blazor in Forms.framework.controls.label. This other one is Microsoft.mobile Blazor bindings.elements.label. So that's the Xamarin specific things. So it's still label, right? But the difference come in at your imports. So it's either you import that one or you import the, so your imports file will be different for your WinForms and your Xamarin. But the idea is there, right? So you have checkbox. In my opinion, this could have been a checkbox as well, but they chose to call it switch. But the same thing, right? So at the end of the day. So this weather example, I'm actually interested to see how that works. Can run the OS version because I don't have a Mac or something to render this. Will this actually work? Let's see what happens. No, later. That was some later? No way. Oh, cool. Pay to Mac. Okay. Oh, now I need to Mac. Okay, so I'm not gonna do this because I don't have a Mac. Unfortunately. I should get a Mac. Right, so let's see how the Blazor one looks like for Android over there. Run that on a Pixel 2 device. I must say it's actually very fast, you know. Back in the day you had to sort of start this thing up and have coffee. Yeah, Willem, you're actually right. It's cool that they made the wizard to help you set up a Mac. Because previously, I think that was the main reason for me not to sort of pursue my Xamarin path, is this whole tedious setup. Initially what they had was you have to sort of go and add a remote and it doesn't work, you have to open ports and etc. So then at that point I just started to stepping off the Xamarin thing. But I must say it's very much thought through now, and it's very much kind of leaner. You know, I went in this one stream installing the components, running it, and it just works. You know, that's awesome. Kudos to James Montenegro and his team for getting this to work, and Miguel Gaza. So this is the weather one. So what does this now actually work? Plus, so you can actually set the temperatures. Okay, depending on how cold it goes blue or green or something. A pancake view or something. How this would work? Oh, there we go. This thing can flip. All these bindings. And if I go all the way, it blocks out at a certain point. Cool. Cool. On that point, I actually want to see if there is a Android. No. What is this thing called again? This is a emulator. What is this? This is the Android emulator. Emulator. Really? Google. Where is this thing now installed? Let's just see. That's Node.js. Where is the emulator now? I want to see this device manager. Device manager. Android or something. I don't know. It was just here. Now it's gone. Can I do it from here maybe? There we go. Student controls. Where do I need to go now to get the managing of devices? Stop this whole thing. Great Android emulator. Okay, cool. Now this will open up the Android device emulator. Alright, so let's see if we have do we have something called the Surface is not here. So I saw the Surface Duo, which I actually want to try out. But it's not on here. Needs to be somewhere. Base device. Or maybe if it's creating a UWP application. I know I'm going off the beaten track now, but it's cool because let me see. Mobile. We want to go for. Do we want to go for mobile? I'm gonna run Android though, so. Let's create a Android Wear application. I just want to see how easy this is to actually make this work. And putting it up there, you know. It's now finished. And I just run it because. Let's just call this a watch. We go to the Android Wear square round. Let's just do the round one. Okay, let's create that one. We'll probably need to install a few things. Seen somewhere we can go actually to the Surface Duo Android emulator or something. I've seen it somewhere. There we go. Use Surface Duo emulator, run the emulator, blah blah blah. Apply to update your pointer to your Android SDK installation. Ooh. A lot of things that we need to do. Surface emulator. So Surface doesn't have that one in here. SDK setup. So public preview. Okay, so get the Surface SDK. Okay, so SDK. So let's download that. Download this thing. Download everything that we want. In the meanwhile, doing 6 things at once. Waiting for this thing to pop up. Come on. Okay, anyway, while that's maybe doing its thing, but the idea was to create in a stream, create a tool that can migrate your existing web forms applications to a Blazor-fied one. And also maybe see if we can maybe work on the actual Blazor WinForms project to create more abstract view of XAML controls or WinForms controls. Why is this not taking its time? Open up. So let's just run this and see what happens. On screen, we will run it and see what happens. We can see what we can break. Let's just do it. Let's just install it. Let's just run it. Let's just do it. In the meanwhile, that's still creating. And there's some blocking thing that's happening.
But if you continue to practice 1, 2, 3 years or more, although you may improve some,
so run this now. It will run it on the application on the current one.
In the beginner's mind, there is no thought, I have attained something. All self-centered thoughts limit our vast mind. When we have no thought of achievement,
Phone is starting up so fast.
We are true beginners.
Hey, got a notification. Cannot install because it's probably a phone. Okay. Come now. Quit waiting. Just stop that guy for now. Alright, so prerequisites. I've got here all the things that I need to do. Service view emulator. Come on, this can work, right? This is the thing. Surface view emulator. Not working. Tablet, that's generics. Where? Nexus. Interesting. Let's see what happens if I go to the surface because it's supposed to open up. It's not doing anything. This thing is grading. This goes in this card to see what happens. App 1. Aha, there's the link. So click that one, so open up that one. Oh damn. Let me see if we can get another one. Android Wear Square. Great, that one, see what happens. Accept. Downloads again for some reason. Let's see. Funny enough, there is no TV project. So if I go, for instance, to TV, there's tvOS. Cool. There's no Tizen, eh? Is Tizen even a thing still? Tizen, it should be a thing. The Tizen, Xamarin, block. Years ago. Oh my soul. Okay, cool. Technically, let's run this guy here on this Android emulator for Android Wear. Not working, I would say. Critical. Critical. There we go, something's happening. Cool, so this is your Android Wear. Okay, looks like it had cold start. Right. So what was this now actually? Detecting installed packages. Does this thing have a... Does not have even a activity text view. Cool, it's all code. Thing is still running. You know what I should do? I should probably get Gerald Verschleis. He's from the Xamarin Forms team. Maybe on the show to kind of guide me with these kind of things. Let's have some patience to see what happens. And I think after this we're going to be closing shop. I think that's I only had, unfortunately, time for about an hour today, hour and a few minutes to stream, but I will be definitely back next week, depending on the schedule. It's been a bit rough few days for me, but let's just see how it goes. At the moment, I'm kind of impromptu streaming, but it's much better than streaming nothing at all, right? So, hey, hello Square World. There we go. There's the kind of works. That's cool, quite cool. Any case, let's go back to all this. Guys, thank you so much for joining. We've been doing a few pokes here and there with new technologies, specifically on the Blazor mobile bindings and the Blazor for web form components that we're going to be maybe checking out in the coming streams later on this week or so, something. Do stay tuned. Follow me on Twitter at FarneyRenders. Find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect there. And also check out my GitHub page for all the interesting projects that we've been working on in the past couple of streams. Having said that, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We will do this another time and another day. So take care and take it easy out there. Oh, and have fun. Before we go, maybe we see if there's let's just do that maybe another time. I actually need to run. So, toodaloo and goodbye.